Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Stacy Campbell, and I am with Sage Intacct and Endeavor. We are very happy for you to join us today. We are talking about Vena and financial planning analysis and how it works amazingly with Sage Intacct. So we are super excited about what we have in store for you today. And we've got a great demo and a great webinar. So thank you again for joining us. So our agenda today, we are going to do a few quick introductions. We've got Carrie and Jason and myself, why Sage Intacct and Endeavor love Vena and Sage Intacct. Of course, the importance of financial planning and analysis. Jason is going to do an amazing live demo for us. We're going to do a recap, talk about a case study, and do some question and answers at the end. And just really excited about getting into it and showing the amazing capabilities of what Vena can do with Copilot and planning. And oh, here we go. So why is Vena a natural fit? Thanks, Carrie. That was a great intro, a great lead-in. So why we love Vena. FP&A, it's a natural evolution for ERP. We're talking about digital transformations. We're talking about AI. We're talking about automation, all the things that make things hard. Vena makes things easy. Vena is a top-tier provider in this space. They've got amazing expandable dashboards that are outside of Sage Intacct. They've got a new Copilot advanced feature for finance teams, which we're going to talk about and Jason is going to show us, advanced workflows and budgeting, and some great modeling and scenario planning. Of course, a talented team of people from Vena that have a ton of experience in this space to help anybody move through it and be successful when they're working with Sage Intacct and Vena. Myself, do a quick intro of myself. I am the Director of Marketing Communications at Sage Intacct and Endeavor. We have Carrie White, who is our Partner Account Manager at Vena, and Jason Chen, who is our Solutions Consultant, Demo Extraordinaire, and is going to be walking us through everything we need to see today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stacy. I will take it away.
My pleasure.
The opportunity is now for all things pressure for the FP&A function, and I'm sure you're feeling it. But did you know that there's 89% of finance leaders say that their organization is facing much higher levels of uncertainty across the business, much more than 5 years ago. So there's a huge throng of opinion and statistics that really support the fact that finance professionals like you are being asked to take on a lot more strategic business responsibilities and not necessarily have the tools and the systems that you need to do that. 75% of an FP&A team is spent on gathering data and administering processes. That is work that we should be automating, and we can automate through the use of Vena and Sage. There is an opportunity for 85% of organizations to do something better or different because they're struggling to maintain that level of decision and planning and support without burning out their staff. And 83% of finance leaders believe that AI is going to be absolutely essential to their strategic decision-making by 2026, which is right around the corner. The other thing is if you are a leader and you are leaning in, so companies that do have a mature FP&A capability are very much outperforming their competitors, 2.5 more times likely than to lead their industries through McKinsey's research. And PwC says that 1.5 times higher revenue growth and double the EBITDA. So these are real stats and real figures that have a massive impact on your function and your capabilities. And with Vena, what we focused on was what matters most. So we know that most FP&A teams and finance organizations tend to spend a lot of time in Excel, and we decided to embrace and not replace Excel. And so that you can still have the ability to use your existing IP, leverage your experience, and then also include that with innovations and, of course, integrations with Sage Intacct. So there's unsurpassed flexibility there. We're very familiar in terms of user adoption and also the user experience, and that there is that cognitive comfort to think and create and manage things that you already know. And so we recognize as well that as you do your day-to-day, as your teams try to set a plan, manage that budget, and then ultimately spit out some reports across various levels, there is so much manual data There are so many exports and imports happening. There are thousands of emails happening. There are definitely opportunities to have this process do a lot more across finance, across operations. And the fact that there is so many smart people doing very manual tasks. There's not a lot of time for review and analysis, and there's a lot lower business agility. There's so many undiscovered insights and some growth opportunities that a lot of teams are missing. So this is the chaos, and this is the planning challenge that is preventing a lot of clarity and agility. And Vena is here to help you to solve that. And the way that we do that is through a very powerful CubeFlex database. So this is a multidimensional, very conversational database that obviously allows us to integrate natively with a number of key ERPs, including Sage Intacct, and also maximizes the opportunity that you have should you have Microsoft Office products like PowerPoint, like obviously Excel, like Teams. This is all able to have you flexibly and continuously innovate and make sure that your financial, operational, transactional data together from your critical company source system like Sage Intacct are combined into a multidimensional database so that you get departments, entities, accounts, product, time periods, and scenarios all in, and be able to provide teams with that secure access, timely collaboration, and empower it with sophisticated analytics through AI, and particularly Vena Copilot, which we'll take a look at in a minute, and Jason will also demonstrate to you very shortly. So the last slide here before I pass it to Jason is all about Vena Copilot in terms of the fact that it's purpose-built for FP&A. So we've spent very due diligence in making sure that we are enabling our users to have much faster decision support with Vena Copilot, and we have derived a specialized agent so that you can have better, faster decisions. You can free up your FP&A teams for that strategic work, less mindless work, if you will, and much more strategic opportunity. And this is all done within native integration within Teams, so you can collaborate in real time, access those instant insights, and also have it be very transparent with that enterprise grade security, de-risk any of that adoption, and be very transparent, and do so in your native language, in your native tongue, because obviously it's natural language processing. Much more to come, and obviously much more to see as I engage Jason here to take over.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Gary. All right, folks, we're going to walk through a number of different elements within the Vena platform today, but as alluded to, we're going to start off with Vena Copilot. Vena Copilot is really purpose-built for finance professionals to be able to get quick answers, as well as have a junior analyst build reports as well as answer questions. Now, we're going to start off simple today, and in natural language ask, what is revenue for 2023? And the point here is that we can actually interact with Vena Copilot in natural language. Your users don't necessarily have to know everything about your data, your charts of accounts, your entity structures. We still should be able to get quick answers just simply asking for something like revenue. But beyond just a simple pull of revenue, what we can also have Vena Copilot do is a number of various different tasks or calculations. In this case, we'll ask it, what are the top 5 departments in terms of operating expense variance actuals to budget for May 2023. Now, apologies, my hands got a little camera shy there, but Vena Copilot is absolutely going to be able to pick up typos, but also go into various different levels within your GL data. For instance, here we're getting down to the monthly level, but you also might notice that Vena Copilot is actually performing the calculation of variance. It's also ranking the top 5. And so this could be your start in looking through your budgets, looking through your actuals, finding anomalies, and performing actionable insights. Now here down below, we have a view slices behind the response button. This is getting a little bit technical, but I always show this on all my Copilot demonstration. That's because this is actually a security feature. When we asked it, hey, what is operating expense for all of my departments? It takes that question and turns it into this query. This query is then separately performed to produce this data extract, which we can download from the system. Within this CSV file, we're going to have all of the underlying data that Copilot can use to perform any number of tasks. Now, this is again a security feature. When you ask a question, Vena Copilot turns that question into this query. This query is then separately performed on your data. The implication of this is that Vena Copilot does not have direct access to your data. There's a security layer and a distinction between your data and Vena Copilot. In addition, we do not take any of your data to train any additional models. It never leaves your tenant or ecosystem. But more importantly, this extract is then provided to Vena Copilot. What that means is that Vena Copilot will never hallucinate on your numbers, and it will never make up numbers because we provide this data extract separately as a piece of information. Now, although this is great, be able to pull out data, answer some questions, get a CSV, one new element that we're very excited about is we can actually have Vena Copilot create reports for us. So in this case, we'll have it create a operating expense variance report comparing actuals to budget for May 2023 by department. Now, again, this could be finance getting a quick answer to some questions, or alternatively, if there are some business leaders who are constantly asking finance to build a new report, instead of having to spend the time to pull all of that data, build the one-time only report, we could actually have Vena Copilot take all of that, take all of those actions for us. So what I'm actually showing you here is our Vena ad hoc report. This is available, of course, separately from Vena Copilot, but here we've enabled it with Vena Copilot. So let's take a look at what Vena Copilot was able to produce. So here we have operating expenses by my departments for May 2023, comparing actuals and budget. If I scroll down here, we actually even get a great visual that's built out as well. Now, this again can be used to leverage any sorts of reports that we need finance to build, whether it's operating expense, revenue, variance, or just a static income statement. We can actually use Vena Copilot to build that view for us. But here, since we are here, I'd love to highlight some of our ad hoc capabilities. This really gives me the opportunity as well to discuss the integration into Sage Intacct. So typically what we'll do for all of our implementations is build an integration with Sage Intacct. I will, and other systems, of course, I'll show in a little bit our direct connector where you can enter in credentials, but the point of that connection brings in your data and classifies it across a number of different dimensions. Now, the typical dimensions we'll see from all of our clients are going to be account, entity, department, year, period, and scenario. And as you can see here, we can actually freely remap those concepts across the rows and periods and columns. So very, very similar to a pivot table. But where we go beyond pivot tables is the fact that we can interact with any hierarchy. The classic hierarchy, or best example, is your charts of accounts. Now here in Vena, we can actually build a report at any level, whether it is at the individual GL level, or alternatively, if we want to build a quick P&L, we can actually interact with any structures that we have within our charts of accounts. Coming back here, we can refresh the data. But if this gets a little bit messy, we can actually drag department back up to the top, and very similar to a pivot table, we get a little filter here as well. Awesome. Again, this is available to all of our users, but the Vena Copilot is a newer feature that we've enabled into our ad hoc reports. Now, before going into the budgeting and forecasting, I'd love to, again, spend a little bit more time talking about data integration. So I've prepared here, essentially, our connections. This is a list of some of the connections and direct connectors that we have. As you can see, we've got Salesforce, Business Central, NetSuite, QuickBooks, but most importantly today, Sage Intacct. Here, we're able to essentially enter in our Intacct username and password, our credentials. Once we have established that connection, we can actually build any sort of data feed. Well, let me do this from actually a new feed. Here, we can actually designate within our Sage Intacct connector any data table that you have within the Sage environment. Once we have the object, we can bring in your GL details, trial balances, sales invoices, fixed asset registries, or other subledgers. Any custom fields within any of those tables can be brought in as well. All right, folks. Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. We're going to take a look at Vena from a budgeting perspective. So I've prepared another environment, and in this case, we're going to log in as someone named Frank Jones using Frank's individualized username and password. Vena is, of course, a web-based platform, and we're compatible across Mac, PC, mobile, and tablet, and of course, we can set up single sign-on as well. Now, when we log in today, I'd love to take everyone through our manager mode. Within this, it'll highlight essentially all of the various different industries that we've got solutions for, whether it's higher education, retail banking, pro sports. We've got a number of NFL teams who use us to report up to the league as well as do budgeting, manufacturing clients, real estate, etc. But here within our annual budget or 2024 annual plan process, we can essentially use the Vena workflow designer to build our entire process from beginning to end. Within this, we are going to be able to set dates, tasks, review processes, etc. Clicking in on this expense planning, we can take a look at the New York expense planning process. Within this first task, we can assign out different owners, support workers, or watchers, any of the individual templates that we have. We can build in due dates, such as smart dates that roll over as the process continues quarter over quarter or year over year, or choose a hard date if it's a one-time only activity. Within the Vena workflow process, we're going to have automated reviews and checks, as well as the distribution of reports automatically. You're going to be able to send notifications through the application. Users will receive an email to navigate to the Vena system. From a status tracking perspective, we're always going to be able to see what's started, what's work in progress, what has been approved, track each individual activity, reset it, etc. Now, the outflow or output of all of this workflow is essentially Vena's end user process or our contributor mode. In this, Frank has a list of tasks that he needs to complete within the system. Now, they're ordered in priority with the overdue items at the top, the ones in progress on the horizon next, and the view-only ones, and some view-only reports available at any time. Now, today we're going to really focus in on expense planning, but know that Vena has solutions across revenue as well as the balance sheet. But here, taking a look at the task, we see all of the other owners and support workers or watchers in the process. Vena is absolutely meant to be a collaborative tool. But the star of our show is certainly this operating expense template, which we can just check out from the platform. This will launch a new Excel file right onto my desktop. Now, here, it's actually very important to note at this stage, this Excel file currently has no data into it. All we have is some structures and some formatting. All of the data is actually securely stored on our KubeFlex database, and we leverage the choose box here to select the specific slice of data that we want to be working on. Now, it's very important to note that all of the various different departments will use the same template across the organization to enter in their budgets. When I did budgeting in a previous life, although it may be beneficial to have each of the departments design their own workflow, design their own way of entering the budget, when we try to roll those up, it almost makes it impossible to create a consolidated budget across all of the various different vendors and calculations that we build within those individual templates. So here in Vena, we can leverage a single template, which means that it's easy to roll up all your inputs, but more importantly, you only need to maintain a single file. Now, built into Vena is also the ability to have different scenarios. Maybe we're starting off with a budget and then reforecasting across different reforecasts or stress testing our assumptions across different what-if scenarios. Users are going to be able to freely create as many scenarios as they need, copy budgets, lock down budgets, compare different forecasts, etc. Now, when we apply this selection here, we're going to load in all of the details, essentially give Frank an area to enter in his budgets. And here we'll start off with our first advertising line item, and it's just Excel. Users can freely enter in data. They can leverage the drag and drop functionalities, add in formulas, as well as copy paste. Now, when users are ready to commit these back into their budgets, back into the forecast, back into the database, all we need to do is save the data. This will take these numbers, send them over to the cloud, allow them to be rolled up in any subsequent reports and templates. One test that I had from implementation would just be simply delete it and to refresh it. But this is showing, again, these numbers are locked into the system and going to roll up into any of the other forms or reports. Outside of just simple direct input, we also allow for our users to plan with what we call line item details. I like to think of this as planning at a descriptive level or a placeholder level. So here we can add in some placeholder promotions, maybe promotions XYZ, promotions ABC. And as I'm entering in these details, you might notice that the subtotal formula is automatically created. It's automatically calculating. And additionally, if I try to key something in onto this cell, there's some fat finger protection. So we totally understand that Excel is a flexible playground, but we can absolutely add some certain guardrails and controls within the process. Now, many of our users love the direct input, but we'll leverage drivers to help with the planning. So taking a look at some of the out-of-the-box drivers here, maybe we're planning our computer supplies based off of FTE, or we're bringing in some historicals, linear regressions. Maybe we're planning based off of revenue or other KPIs or statistical accounts. Really, any of those measures can be brought into the Vena system, whether it's a user input entering in their seasonality, or potentially integrating with other systems such as the HRIS, bringing in FTEs into the planning, driving calculations and budgets based off of headcount. I will mention that the the HRS is probably the most popular secondary system that we integrate with. From there, all other sorts of systems, we are source system agnostic. We can bring in your KPIs, your operational data, etc. Now, coming back up above, here, our most popular driver, at least from my experience, is our year-over-year increase. And I haven't shown this yet, but of course, we're going to be integrating with Sage Intacct, bringing in your actuals. But let's say that I'm Frank and I'm looking at this 9272 number, and I don't really know what makes this up. I don't know what transactions. I don't know if these costs are one-time or recurring. If I don't have Vena, I need to go into Sage Intacct, download a huge extract, filter to the year period scenario account entity department. But here in Vena, we can actually always double click on our numbers. So we'll drill to transaction, and this will take us to that invoice level detail, that vendor level information. Here, Frank can actually determine if these costs are one-time or reoccurring. This is probably one of the most important and popular features within Vena, whether it's budgeting or reporting for analysis. The ability to double click back to the lowest level of detail in Sage Intacct makes it so that you don't need to switch between systems. Again, you can always double click on all your numbers in Vena. All right, let's come back over to this main input sheet. And there's one very important concept that I'd love to get across. Taking a look at our travel expense here, we're just linking over to our travel tab. Looking at that travel tab, essentially what we're allowing for users to do is enter in their travel details, the number of nights, the lodging, the meals per day, using Excel formulas to essentially model all of this out. The point here is not to say we are going to build a travel tab for every one of our clients. The point here is to say this is just Excel. Some of my favorite implementations have been taking those workbooks with dozens, if not hundreds of individual tabs, ones for each entity and department and location. We steal one of those and upload it into the Vena system and swap out the inputs and outputs, making it a controlled experience as well as automated, bringing in all of the inputs from all the various different departments. Awesome. Now, Frank only has a single input left to make. Let's assume that he's got a number of promotions that he's running in December. In this case, when I try to save the data, it's going to give me a warning. That's because we can add guardrails or thresholds into the process. For example, this one, if any of the accounts exceed a threshold greater than year-over-year 20%, we just want our users to make a comment. You might notice this target up above. That's another example of a threshold that we can add within the process. At the end of the day, really any additional controls that we want to add to make sure that our budgets align with our expectations, we can add in at the template level. So here we'll have Frank make a comment of promotions in December. Now, we can save the data and complete the budget. And here we can start discussing many of the auditing features within Vena. I think one of the most impressive ones is our audit trail. This actually tracks every single change that this template has made back into the database that's affected our budgets. Here we can actually pop out a brand new workbook. It's going to say book one up at the top, and it's going to start to highlight all of the cells that are impacted. Clicking on this cell, it's going to show me what I was before and what it is now. I think the key takeaway and implication here is that every single cell, every single click, every single user activity, we take a snapshot of it. You're never going to need to know where your numbers came from. All of that is going to be logged within the audit trail in the Vena system. All right, let's close out of this. Let's complete the budget. And let's assume that it's now time to take a look at some reports. Here we can close this out, and within the same workflow, we can actually take a look at some of the view-only reports that are assigned out to Frank within the Vena system. Focusing mostly today on the financial statements, we'll walk through an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, and variance that we've set up. Now here, we're going to load in another choose box. This choose box allows us to build this report at any level. We can pull in all of the various different departments or build a report that pulls in a single department or a single entity. Here, we'll pull in the consolidated structure, apply the selection, not reinventing the wheel here, 12 months of budget, 12 months of historical actuals mixed with forecast. And I've shown how we can double click on our actuals. But here within our budget details, we actually have some double clicking functionality as well. So scrolling over to our general operating expense, we can actually drill down onto this. This will take us to all of the inputs that have been made into the system. From here, because it's Excel, I could build a pivot table. I can filter on any individual entity. But taking a look at this taking a look at these numbers, I might be curious about this 80K number. It's jumping out a little bit, especially compared to some of the other numbers. If I'm Frank's manager and I'm reviewing this information, I have no idea where this number came from. I don't know how to answer the who, what, where, when. But leveraging the drill saves functionality within Vena, we can again interact with the audit trail. Here it's answering exactly that. The who, what, where, when. Today, Frank Jones using the operating expense template. But again, going one step further, we can download the details, really showing off Vena's audit trail. Here I can see that 80K is really explained by Frank's comment of promotions in December, closing the loop. Again, the key implication here is that even if you're in a downstream report, even if you're 6 months away from budget, you can always answer the who, what, where, when of where your budget came from. All right, we'll quickly go over the balance sheet. Of course, we'll build balance sheet based off of the integration into Sage, any ratios, any KPIs as well. Similarly, on the cash flow, organizing across operating, investing, and financing activities. For this variance template, though, let's take a quick pause. Showing a very familiar structure, P&L, monthly, quarterly, year-to-date view, comparing dollar and percentage variance. But let's say I want to toggle between actuals and forecast to actuals and budget, or even just view a different month. All I need to do is update those selections and then refresh the data. The implication of this is that you only need one variance report. It's good for today, it's good for tomorrow, comparing actuals to budget, actuals to forecast, etc. When I was in implementation, we would create a single variance report that would be good for the entire organization. All right, the final tab is, of course, some dashboarding. All of these dashboards are built off of the Vena data coming from Sage Intacct combined with any of the budgets entered into the system. We actually have an incredible PowerPoint integration where we can essentially take any of these charts, live update them into your decks. As a former management consultant, that means no longer using those third-party programs like ThinkCell to update those waterfall charts. Essentially, we can bridge these live into Vena. So let's give a quick demonstration of how we can do that. Going back over to our manager mode, here we're going to be able to upload any of our existing PowerPoint decks into the Vena system. The expectation is absolutely not to create a brand new deck. You can use the existing decks that you have with the formatting, branding, logo, etc. What we're allowing you to do is actually enroll some of your Vena templates. This financial statements is the last document that we were looking at, but we've enrolled it into this PowerPoint presentation. This allows us to, one, open up PowerPoint from the Vena application, but more importantly, interact with the Vena choose box within PowerPoint. As you can see here, we've got a new bar. This is our Vena 365 connector, and this is going to allow us to essentially build in any presentations or visuals into the PowerPoint. So here we'll make some selections. Again, this is just the setup for this. And once we have that connection built, we can actually add in any visual, any table, even any individual cell into our PowerPoint presentations. We'll just give this a second to load here. This is establishing, again, a connection between PowerPoint and our Excel templates. So here, I think the best way for me to demonstrate this is actually just to build a new slide. We can actually, again, interact with our financial statements, any of the charts or graphs, whether it's that waterfall or a simple income statement and net income chart. Now here, this is going to be a static view, but once we interact with the choose box, we can actually leverage this choose box to, one, change the level of data that we're viewing at. Currently, it's showing the consolidated view. We can build a report at any individual entity. Additionally, I will say, as soon as we integrate with Sage Intacct and we close our books, any of that data will be live reflected into these decks. The implication of that is you no longer need to update these month over month, quarter over quarter. You no longer need to copy paste that new data into that back tab in ThinkCell. Essentially, this connection is going to be live and automated. It also means that you can build this presentation at multiple different levels for a single department or for a single entity. Now, in terms of visualizations, though, we love our PowerPoint integration, but the industry has really moved towards interrogating your data, interacting with your data, which is why we've introduced Vena Insights. So what is Vena Insights? Vena Insights is essentially white-labeled Power BI, as you can see the Power BI logo here. But there's some distinct advantages. The major one is that you do not need a separate database, a separate data integration, separate licenses, admin, etc. All of your data from Sage Intacct will actually naturally be bridged into this layer automatically, bringing in not only your underlying details, but any hierarchies, any structures that you have. For instance, showing here that we can bring in any consolidation structures within the entities. The best example, of course, is your charts of accounts. But this is the last time you're going to see me interacting with the filters, because the whole point of Power BI is that we can interact with it. So here we'll hover over this US location. We'll have some commentary generated, as well as a breakout into the account groups. And from here, we can actually double click on our US location, drill down into it, get down to this city level. We'll see all the KPIs, all of the graphs, all of the widgets update. From there, if I want to go one level further and drill through down into the lowest level, similar to our Vena templates, we have the ability to download the transactions in this layer as well. Now, one of the best ways for me to show the advantages of Power BI, especially over Excel or PowerPoint, is taking a look at this decomposition tree. So here, let's first analyze our revenues from a country perspective, comparing US to Europe, comparing US and Europe. We noticed a little bit of a march here in our US. Let's see if Canada has that as well. No, looks like it doesn't. Okay, let's go down to this city level within my US country. And let's compare New York to Los Angeles. Okay, looks like New York's really driving that dip in March. Now let's go down to my revenue account level and see which one of my products is really driving that result. From here, we can compare product sales to subscription sales and professional services. Clearly, it's our subscription sales really driving that dip in our US location in New York. But this really begs the question, hey, how are my other cities performing in subscription sales? I can quickly reorganize this decomposition tree to show that view. At the city level, we could pop this out, really start to analyze city by city our results. Hopefully you're seeing that this type of dynamic storytelling just isn't possible with Excel or PowerPoint. Now, within this tool, our users really have the ability to modify and own these dashboards themselves. We've heard time and time again from those users who do have Power BI that they don't necessarily own the dashboards, they don't necessarily own the data. But here in Vena, we make it so easy that finance can own the visualizations themselves. They own the budgets. Why not build these visualizations comparing the budgets as well? So here showing off that is just Power BI. We've got the full suite of visualizations and capabilities. For instance, if I want to change this into an area chart, I can, or to a clustered bar chart. For this decomposition tree, you might notice I only have the ability to see city and account. Where's my departments and entities? Well, they're right here. This data panel, if we do not have the Vena system, would require you to build all of these connections yourselves, the DAX, the calculation tables. But here in Vena, we make it incredibly easy for you to build new visuals. Again, if you can map an Excel chart, you can map a Power BI visual here as well. All right, folks, that really takes us to the end of what I wanted to show today. We've walked through a number of different elements: Copilot, our Sage Intacct integration, our OpEx input, reporting, PowerPoint, as well as insights. Hopefully everyone's seen something that they like within the Vena system. And unless there's any questions that I can spot right now, we'll pass it back over to Carrie and Stacy.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think I've got a couple more slides and we'll end with Stacy, but Reina and Sandra, thank you so much for staying on. I think there's a couple more things here that I want to share with you with respect to completing the mastery. So let me just make sure this goes into slideshow mode. There we go. So at the end of all of what Jason just showed you, so you can see that Vena offers complete FP&A mastery. So you can start off with that strategic plan, define your long-term goals, the key business drivers, and really help better align finance through the budgeting cycle, through to reporting, and then being able to even analyze and optimize it. And you know that being integrated with Sage Intacct makes it super easy, and also the integration with the Microsoft Office stack, just that much easier. So much less time spent on a whole host of things. And, you know, don't take our word for it. Certainly there's several customer testimonials. One of these is in the nonprofit space, Museum of Science and Industry of Chicago. But they were really struggling with static modeling and a very cumbersome variance reporting. And they spent up to about 10 hours every month meeting with multiple different departments. And when we came in, what we allowed them to do through the direct Sage Intacct integration is create really that one source of truth that you saw that Jason demonstrated as well. So that all of the data could be aggregated, attendance and workforce and CapEx to really help to drive that budget and do so in real time, preserving some of that Excel familiarity. And so what they achieved was about 50% reduction in their meeting times. They took 10 hours to 5. They did a lot more on-demand scenario modeling and certainly a lot better collaboration across the board. So this is just one of many stories for sure. And certainly a number of different logos as well that we have. And some of you may recognize some of the logos on here. And we are very industry agnostic. Vena can certainly work in multiple different industries. And but the great thing is again, we're integrated with Sage Intacct. And the team at Endeavor is really great at being able to make sure that Vena is stood up and made sure that it's implemented in a fantastic way. And so I'll pass it back to Stacy to say more.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Jason, that was an amazing demo. Really got into details, and for me, that was it was one of the first times that I've seen it for myself in that format. So that was fantastic and very easy to understand. And I think that will definitely be very helpful to many of our Sage Intacct clients. So about us, Sage Intacct, we've been in business for 35 plus years doing ERP implementations. We've been a Sage Intacct partner for more than 10 years. We do everything from advisory in implementations, corporate reporting, long-term training and support. We are US-wide and Canada, so all of North America. We're able to serve anybody in any of those locations. So we're excited about that. If you'd like to demo, you want to talk more about Vena, you love Jason's demo and you just want to see more, give me a call. You can reach out to me there's my direct number. You can send me an email. There's also other people at Endeavor. If you're a current customer, you can reach out to Trish and Paul or Jerry. If you're new to Endeavor and you want more information, you can reach out to myself. And then I can put you in touch with the right person. But this was fantastic. And Carrie and Jason, thank you so very, very much for spending your time with us this morning. It was wonderful. And from Endeavor and Sage Intacct, we really appreciate what you did for us today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Reina, Sandra, any curiosities that you want to get covered now? We do have some time.
Are there any questions that you normally get, Jason, that aren't coming up today that you normally get when you do a demo?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of questions. I would say typically the questions really revolve around data integration, but in this case, I think hopefully I've shown that essentially we're going to be able to grab any table from Sage Intacct, whether it's your GL details, your objects, your fixed asset registries, any subledgers. Our connector really is able to connect to any custom object, any custom field. Rest assured, as long as it's within Sage Intacct, we are going to be able to bring it into the Vena system.
Jason, I'm curious too, in terms of, I think you've covered this, but in terms of handling multi-entity or multi-currency structures from Intacct, how do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically within that connection to Sage Intacct, we can bring in all of the various different entities, departments, etc. If there is currency considerations, what we'll typically do is bring each entity or subsidiary with its local currency. And then from there, we can build any sort of reporting currencies that are required once we have any FX rates.
Nice. Last thing from my side, in terms of reporting, I think audit trail and then PowerPoint exporting, how does that work in terms of making sure the updates are automatically done? Does that happen when new data syncs from Intacct?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that Vena handles the audit trail and workflow. We can build in with our workflow automated reminders, automated tasks, automated reports, so that as soon as we close our books from Sage Intacct, we can expect to have distributed reports reviewing that information. And additionally, during the budgeting season, all of that will be assigned out through the workflow. And anytime a user does anything in Vena, whether it is opening a report, saving a budget, that is all going to be logged within our audit trail in the Vena system.
Wonderful.
So I have a question. What about industries? Is for like healthcare or nonprofit, is Vena shining in, is it industry agnostic, or are there industries where it really shines and makes a great difference? Because a lot of like medical offices are multi-location, multi-entity. Nonprofits have grant reporting and allocations. How does it work with that?
So a really, really great question. Of course, every industry and every business is a little bit unique. Within Vena, we have solutions across all of the various different industries. Additionally, we also have user groups where a lot of our customers will meet together and discuss relevant Vena topics, but also, of course, just relevant to their industry and their profession. We've got a number of user groups spanning manufacturing, real estate, pro sports, hospitality, not-for-profit. And so not only do we have solutions for all of these various different industries, we actually give a space for similar-minded people to meet and discuss and really grow, not only in the Vena system, but also in their professions.
I love that. That's fantastic. I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of those user events and whatnot are generally available through our events page. So I will put that in the chat, and just give me a minute to put that in there. And Reina and Sandra, please, take a look at that. But first and foremost, if you are interested in what you saw today, definitely contact Stacy first. We want to make sure that Endeavor enables you to find out more, not only about Vena, but also about what Endeavor does. But regardless, I'll put that in the chat so you have it. Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Appreciate that. No, this has been great, incredibly informative. Thank you both, Carrie and Jason, for showing us what Vena can do with Sage Intacct. And it was a really great morning. So appreciate that.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Without
Carrie.
further ado, it's in the chat, and really appreciate you both staying on for the duration. And again, it's a pleasure to be part of the team with Endeavor, and we've got a strong partnership and more to come together, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.